For 40 of sim racing's elite talents, the next 6 races will be some of the most important of their esports careers. It's the golden road to a shot at $100,000 and a chance at eNASCAR and iRacing immortality. The eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series is the final ledge below the top of the mountain, and tonight the Pro Series field assembles to chase one of 21 spots available in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2021. It all begins here at the World Center of Racing, the hollowed high banks of Daytona International Speedway, a track where dreams and careers are made and where split-second decisions can either spell certain victory or utter disaster. Tonight, Daytona begins these drivers' journey towards a possible Coke Series berth, and while no one can secure their place at the top level tonight, a rough start here could make that climb a lot more difficult going forward. The talent in the field is near boundless, from a past Coke Series champ in Zach Novak to drivers trying to return to the Premier Series and others who are competing in that Pro Series for the first time in their careers. The time is now, the questions are endless, and we're about to get the first set of answers in 100 laps. This is the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. This is Daytona. Let's ride. Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the World Center of Racing, the virtual Daytona International Speedway, where tonight Podium Esports kicks off coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. It's the opening round from Daytona. I'm Speed Sports' Jacob Seelman, joined on the call tonight by Winston-Salem, North Carolina's James Pike, and Raleigh, North Carolina's Blake McCandless, with our producer Ryan Bauer down in the command trailer this evening. And we are just a few moments away, James, from seeing how all this is going to play out. The anticipation, I've already got the hair standing up on the back of my neck. This is about to be as good as it gets.
Thank you to Jacob, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the Pro Series for a second season running. And I feel like the Pro Series continues to grow every year, but after the way 2020 has panned out, it seems like the jump from 2019 to this year is so much bigger than it's ever been in this series. And you look at some of the names that are in here. You mentioned Zach Novak, Mitchell DeYoung, who's looking for a place in a record-setting 5th different World Championship Series. He's here. Michael Garigley is here from the Coke Series. You've got Eddie Kerner, who won the Landon Castle Qualifying Challenge, who's in tonight's race. So many different names that have been all over the map in iRacing. You see them on YouTube and Twitch in different series. You haven't seen them come together, but the best of the best outside the Coke Series are in one spot tonight, and Daytona always puts on an incredible show.
That it does. James will be stationed over in turns 3 and 4. Blake McCandless, you'll be in the banking in turns 1 and 2 with Justin Prince down on pit road. We'll get to all the voices in just a moment. Right now, we'll get set to bring you the starting lineup for tonight's 100-lap, 250-mile event. And boy, it's going to be as interesting as it gets. Brian Schoenberg, the double nickel on pole, 1,000th of a second separates him from Seth DeMerchant. And those front 3 rows pretty loaded with talent. Alan Bowes trying to get back to the top level, as is Dylan Duvall. A little bit deeper in that grid, Donovan Strauss, one of the young guns in this series, and Ashton Crowder from the outside of row 5, James. A lot of talent spread throughout this field. Going to be very interesting to watch tonight.
Big-time names all over the place. Garrett Maines of Richmond Raceway Esports Driver Development, his first crack at the Pro Series here tonight. And Santiago Tires, who's made a name in here as well, Blake McCandless.
He certainly has, and looking at the rest of the field, it looks like obviously you mentioned Gonzalez, Cattell in there as well as we continue to roll on through. The one thing I'm interested, though, James, and the one thing I was really looking for in this lineup is it's really been the talk of the town. If you talk to a couple of these drivers, a couple of different teams that are out there, about nearly a quarter of the field kind of being all under the same umbrella, and where those drivers were going to start, looking at a lot of those dead zone drivers starting in about the middle part of the pack, so they won't have control out front, and I think that just leaves this wide open for anybody else to get the taking. And then what a job by both Schoenberg and DeMerchant. We know DeMerchant, one of the best in the super speedways on this service. He has been for a long time, and of course Brian Schoenberg recently kicked out of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. He's looking to get back to form, where in 2019 he was obviously in the Pro Series, worked his way back to the Coke Series. He'll look to do that again tonight.
So
Car-
different storylines that we could talk about, Jacob. But yeah, track facts first. I think the most important thing. Let's get people acquainted with Daytona. That's the biggest thing. If you aren't, well aware or all about already.
Absolutely right. Field right now spilling into the 31-degree banks that inhabit turns 1 and 2. That'll be the purview of Blake McCandless all evening long as the field now starting to pace up 2 by 2 as they spill out of turn number 2 and down onto the long Daytona super stretch. James Pike, you'll pick them up going down the back straightaway, headed towards the banking in turns 3 and 4, where they'll come back out of turn number 4 and into my view in the tri-oval. From Windsor, Ontario, Canada, Justin Prince going to be our pit reporter tonight, and you'll hear from him coming up very shortly in this broadcast for all the strategy and I'm sure some of the voices and tempers that may flare over the radio as we go through this 100 laps, 250 miles, and a lot of strategy that we think going to be yet to play out. But it doesn't get much better than this. 40 drivers are here, ready to go 2 by 2 as they work through the high banks in turns 3 and 4. We're glad you're along for the ride for round number 1 of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series here on Podium Esports, as now the pace car will look to exit the 31-degree banks out of turn number 4 and head for the safety of pit road. That'll leave the field in the hands of Brian Schoenberg and Seth the Merchant as they come to the tri-oval. Green flag waves, and we're underway from the World Center of Racing. 100 laps on tap as the inside lane gets the early jump. Schoenberg trying to get away. Seth the Merchant goes side by side with them as they escape to turn 1.
Well, and it looks like that bottom line going to be a little bit formed up there as Alan Bowe's going to get to the back of Brian Schoenberg. It's going to put him out by just about a car length. He'll have the top spot all to himself. The rest of the field side by side as they work off a 2.
Here comes Seth the Merchant on the outside, the inaugural champion of the Podium Esports Daytona 500 with help from Derek Justice, who you can find on Twitch as well. One of the most popular drivers in this field, pushing that Toyota Supra of the Merchant through the middle of 3 and 4 for the first time.
They're going to come back to the stripe very quickly. It's almost gridlock at 190 miles an hour. Oh, a little bit of contact right behind race leader Brian Schoenberg. It is already very, very dicey as they cross the stripe for the first time. Schoenberg leads it by about a half car length as they head back to turn 1.
And that's going to be the name of the game, Jacob, all evening long as we start to see 3 wide there. The 48 of Brandon Cattell, 2 by 2 in the first couple of roads. They work 3 down the back.
No time wasted whatsoever, and Derek Justice immediately went up to the top to get the help from Cattell and Chris Overland. Some slip angle motorsports action on that very top line as they are 3 by 3 by 3 for about the first 12 cars back in the field.
And how about the defense that Schoenberg is playing? He has not left that double yellow line as they escape turn 4 and head back down to the start-finish line. Now the challenge comes from the middle of the racetrack. DeMerchant's there. DeMerchant edges ahead at the start-finish line to lead it by a couple of inches back to turn 1.
You see that middle groove starting to form. You see Derek Justice at the top of your screen, but the help has left, so Derek Justice jumps out of line. He's going to be falling through the pack. It is still, though, out front, Brian Schoenberg.
We thought that maybe we'd get 3 for a little bit, but everybody back down to 2, and we'll see how far Justice drops back. Meanwhile, Taylor Hirsch has made an appearance at the top 5 for the first time this evening. And Colin Keister, who won the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event at Charlotte back in May, he's up in the top 10 as they work their way through lap 3.
They do, and already this is a little bit more chaotic than I think what we may have expected. The outside lane trying to challenge again as they work towards the stripe. Now it's Alan Bowes up the outside. He'll become the 3rd different leader in 3 laps, and it is very, very dicey. Blake, they're trying to go 3 wide again in 1.
Once again, another big head of steam from Brandon Cattell on the high side. He now has drafting help from the 16 of Chris Overland on the top side. They tried to get it formed earlier, but they look red hot and steaming here on the high side.
This time, a little bit more help, but a much bigger push from Chris Overland to try and get Brandon Cattell out front. Cattell's got experience winning in super speedways. He won the Coke Series race at Talladega back at the end of September. Knows how to get it done, not only at this kind of track, but this level of sim racing too.
That he does, and this front pack here, they're trying to go 3 wide for the lead into the tri-oval. That rarely works at Daytona. They're going to make it work here. Way up the outside goes Cattell as he battles for the race lead. Bowes has it, but it's a pack of hornets in turn 1.
Well, and Brandon Cattell, one of those eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series drivers trying to work their way back into the series. However, out front, 2x2, it is Seth the Merchant and Alan Bowes, who came up from the Road to Pro Series.
It is a whole host of former Coke Series drivers at the front. Seth DeMerchant and Taylor Hurst are the only ones to break that up at the top 8. And then Mr. DeYoung and Donovan Strauss charging. We know about DeYoung's exploits with VLS Cozana Swimsport and Donovan Strauss at Burton Kligerman Esports too.
It's interesting, and I'm watching the 17 of Colin Keister in the middle of that pack almost dart around a little bit. That 17's worked his way up into the top 10. He was 8th last time by. He's the 3rd car in the middle lane, and he is looking for somewhere to go. I think nowhere to go, though. Blake back in 1.
And nowhere to go right now for Keister. You can't look low, you can't look high. He's in the middle of a hornet's nest now, and they are still gridlocked at the front of the field. Bowes and DeMerchant going side by side. They've got help from both Schoenberg and Dylan Duvall.
The teammates are trying to make that top line work, but nobody wants to go with them. Colin Keister staying down on the inside. DeYoung is down on the bottom. Justice is down there. Eric Smith beginning to make an appearance, but nobody really helping Cattell or Overland, though with the way they're running up there, you wouldn't necessarily know it.
No, you wouldn't know it at all. It's almost a free-for-all at this point as they work back into the trial. Well, they've been 3 wide for the top spot for now almost 5 straight laps, and it's too close to call across the line. Alan Bowes by 4 1/1000ths of a second. This is as tight as I've seen it since the drop of the green flag, Blake.
And I have to say that Chris Overland, Jacob, is doing a masterful job right now. He is all alone with Brandon Cattell managing the temperatures, and yet they are still making that high side work with just 2 vehicles.
I feel like that has to be Coke Series experience. That has to be teammates. Cattell and Overland together at Slip Angle Motorsports, so they know how to run together because they've done it so much. And at this level, too, if there are drivers in this field that can make the outside lane work up top like they have, it might be those two and those two alone, Jacob.
It may be those two. They certainly have the most drafting experience of anybody in the field. We remain this 3-wide dance across the stripe now as we complete 7 laps. Work lap number 8. How long can they do this? It's impressive to watch, Blake, and it's not over yet. Now DeMerchant out of the middle trying to clear.
Well, he's trying to clear, but 2 more have jumped up into the 3rd lane. You see Eric J. Smith can ruffle some feathers a bit. Santiago Tierras has also joined the fray, so that 3rd line is still looking for momentum.
3rd line is still pushing there. They are deadlocked in the middle, but Seth DeMerchant running that middle lane. We haven't really talked about what he's been able to do there, but we saw with Brandon Cattell in the race at Talladega, it was the middle lane that got him the win, that got him the speed, that tends to be the one in front coming across the start-finish line.
That it does. They work now lap number 8, so still a very, very long way to go. And as we watch this pack spill back into the trial and across the stripe, we'll throw it down to our pit reporter tonight and see if we can't get some early strategy from Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. Some of the drivers talked about earlier on tonight that the importance of having the amount of tape on your race car is important. Some drivers may go higher towards 25% to be more on the aggressive side, but the main concern about tonight has been temperatures when it comes to those temps. Some drivers elect to go to 20% to be more conservative. The thing is, though, there are 3 potential strategies drivers have talked about for pit stops tonight. Some may try and pit earlier on in the run in a small grouping of about 5 to 10 cars around 35, 40 laps or so in. Drivers can stretch it up to 45 on the gas and may go to that point, while others may try and go for the simple 2-stop. The importance to remember, though, is some drivers may not fill it up to the top on the gas tonight to try and offset potential time lost on a 4-tire pit stop, 16 gallons, emphasizes the exact same amount of time it takes to put 4 tires and that 16 gallons into the tank tonight.
All things we're going to be watching. Thank you, Justin Prince. The field working down the back straightaway. Seth DeMerchant trying to control it. James Pike as they work towards turn number 3, but he has got Alan Bowes and Brian Schoenberg not giving up.
Not giving up on it. I almost feel like they're hitting a bit of a groove, but we're also seeing Cattell and Overland drop back. Makes me wonder if they tried to push it for a few laps just to build the notebook a little bit for later on in this race.
It's interesting to watch, and we see them work off turn number 4 and back to the start-finish line. Again, still so much of this race yet to go, and everybody seems to be minding their P's and Q's right now, Blake, as they work back towards turn number 1. Nobody's gotten too dicey just yet.
Well, and it's hard to do so. I remember talking to a couple of these drivers, the temperatures and getting right up on the back of somebody, it just creates, obviously we know it creates a lot of heat, but especially in these Xfinity cars, it's really exponential the closer you get, and that's why you see guys barely hanging off each other as they run through the pack.
Tape and overheating, especially if you're in the middle of the pack, are going to be two very key points each and every one of these drivers will have to monitor, especially as we get towards the back half of this race. You throw a band into the wind, but you could also throw your chances out the window too.
That you can, and we continue to see Alan Bowes, Seth DeMerchant. Those are the two drivers who have dominated these lines early on. Nobody really willing to step too far out of line, and I think that's going to be the key, is who decides to make the move first and really shuffle this thing up as the green flag run goes into its later stages, and then as we get closer to the finish of this race, the desperation will start to seep in. You know you want to perform well here in order to not have to be digging yourself out of a hole, James Pike, as they work back towards turn 3, often calamity corner here at Daytona.
We saw crazy things happen, though, last year. Ray Alfalo was caught up in the big one right about this point in turn 3 and 4 where they run now, and he was able to still make it out. So it's not impossible, but it does make life harder.
That it does. Bowes and DeMerchant have been trading the lead back and forth among themselves at the front of this field the last couple of laps. They work through the tri-oval one more time as we now put 12 laps up on the board. Work lap number 13. DeMerchant back at the head of the field for a moment as Bowes challenges again in 1 and 2.
And Bowes able to nose out front. DeMerchant going to go side by side at the front. That's again with the 55 of Brian Schoenberg, who led us to the drop of the green flag and right now sits in third.
Schoenberg, who had a wild 2020 in the Coach Series and bounced around a few different teams, but eventually found a home with North Force Racing, who will be campaigning this 2020 eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series run with. It looks like a strong start so far for Schoenberg.
That it does, and for Schoenberg to get himself back into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, he's been in there just about as long as anybody. He knows he needs a good run. Tonight's a good place to do it. He's sitting third right now, Blake. What does he have to do to get past the Alan Bowes car out front?
Well, I think the one thing you got to look around and you got to find teammates. We know that teams are going to be a big part of the running of this race. He's got Derek Justice, who's not all too far behind him. They'll obviously be working together at some point in the race, but you have a couple of others that are really stuck at the back of the field when you talk about those teammates, Isaac Gann being another.
Derek Justice, too, another driver who I think is a threat. He was so strong in the Podium Esports Daytona 500 back in February and got caught up in an incident with Logan Clampett, but had the class of the field car for about 30 laps in the middle of that race. He'll be a threat, Jacob.
That he will, and I love how we're talking about threats at Daytona when we're only 14 laps into this race now. I see the 90 of Zach Novak started way deep in this field, was 33rd, now up to 13th. He has very quietly and very methodically marched his way through the field. You're going to look from on board the number 90, the Richmond Raceway Esports driver, and the 2019 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion. He's trying to move forward, James. The problem is there's nowhere to go.
Unless you're following Justin Bolton and Malik Ray at the very front of this field, who have taken up that third lane that Chris Overland and Brandon Cattell had just a few laps ago. Now it's the 51 and the 10 car. Two drivers with Coke Series experience trying to make the very high lane work for the lead.
Working off turn 4, they're 3 wide for the race lead. Once again, on the bottom is Alan Bowes, where he's been for most of this race. The middle of the racetrack, Seth DeMerchant up high. Here comes Justin Bolton. He wants the lead. He almost got the wall back to turn 1.
Well, and Justin Bolton was helped there by Rowdy Energy. Malik Ray and his Toyota Supra pushed Bolton all the way up there and then dropped out of line. Now they're going to do a swap up top. Malik Ray goes to the top of the third lane.
That was about as well as you could execute a swap from the third lane, especially with this little room as they had to pull that off. And now here comes another car to the top side to try and make something happen. It's Colin Keister and the 17 machine, who's genuinely trying to start up that third lane, but the 10 gets decoupled from the 51 and they all slide backwards.
This has packed up this deep into a run as I think anybody expected to see this race go tonight. We thought there may be a few start to break away. That has not happened at all. 16 laps go on the board. Now Bowes back out front. He's cleared single file. Schoenberg and DeMerchant fight for second.
I got to tell you what, they'll look for this third line. Keister and Ray going to do a little bit of pinching here on the top side, and we know these guys are aggressive and some of the best in the business and making it happen on the plate tracks. It's going to be Ray and Keister teammates trying to move that third lane.
Really trying to make something happen up top, but again, same issue that Overland and Cattell had. No help behind them. Everybody else ready to sit down in that second lane, and it makes me wonder how nuts this will get with about 10 to go, Jacob. Will we need 3 lanes to get to the front?
It's going to get very crazy as they come down towards the finish of that, I'm sure. Right now, however, just 17 laps into this race as they cross the stripe again. It's DeMerchant now out in front. Keister gets to second. Keister once more back to one.
And Keister had the lead there for just a moment, but Malik Ray had to back off, get the engine cooled down on his Rowdy Energy Toyota Supra. They'll have to regroup once again. Keister already lost about 3 lanes as they now run 3x3 for 5th.
Look at that big run up top down this back straightaway, Joe, and Ray's going to be right on the rear bumper of the 17 once again. Otherwise, you look back through the first 10, 12, maybe 14 spots, it is a parking lot at 190 miles an hour, no movement just about in the inside and the outside lanes.
No movement at all, and that's the biggest thing. It's like once you get a position in a lane, where do you go? And that's the problem that somebody like Malik Ray has right now. All you can do is push the guy ahead of you. In that case, it's Colin Keister. Keister to the 3rd lane. Keister trying for the lead again. Bo says no.
And Keister going to get shut out there as once again as DeMerchant and Bose working the top 2. He's as fast as Malik Ray is behind him, but again, when you get that temperature up, it is so hard to cool it in these cars.
You have to pick and choose your moments to push, and that's exactly what Malik Ray has done this time. He does give a big shunt to Keister going down the back straightaway, and Keister will pull the front bumper ahead before they lose the momentum in the middle of the corner. So it's back to 3x3 for the lead again.
It is 3x3. 19 laps into this race, and we've seen more 3x3 than I think we expected, as now Bose and DeMerchant go 1-2. They're clear of the pack. DeMerchant leads at the line by about 1/100th of a second, but this battle is not over. That 3rd lane, Malik Ray and Colin Keister, they are not giving up on it.
They have not yet, and I doubt they will. It's about making slight improvements each time by, and right now Keister starting to be a little bit further forward here on the backstretch than he has been in laps previous.
Keister beginning to inch up now. Bose a little bit slower than he's been. DeMerchant has the room to drop to the bottom if he wants it. But I think we're seeing the game plan for the 57 very early on. He's going to sit in this middle lane. He's going to control it. But how's the fuel run on that car? That's the real question, Jacob.
That is going to be the question, James, as they work back into the trioval once again. And of course, as we all know, Justin Prince, maybe you can tell even a little bit better the fact that when you're drafting behind another car as opposed to leading a lane, you're saving a little bit more fuel. And fuel has been the conversation topic of everybody in preparation for this race.
Yes, we touched upon it just a few moments ago. With these cars tonight, many different drivers are saying stick out line and try and work together. But the reason we see this top line working with some of the aggression coming in as well, despite the fuel concerns, is drivers feel like if you get enough cars together, you can boost yourself up forward into the running order. Drivers for the main thing, though, including Malik Ray, are just staying nice and calm up on that top line at the moment, still trying to work with Colin Keister to try and get something together. Right now, they're looking fairly comfortable on the gas at the moment.
Across the stripe they come. 21 laps go up on the board, and we have been caution-free to this point. And you want to talk how tight this field is? 22 drivers within 1 second of the race lead. This is what racing on the 31-degree high banks at the World Center of Racing is all about. Bose has led the lion's share of the lap. DeMerchant has challenged, but Keister is the driver and the straw, James Pike, that can stir this streak. He's trying for the lead. He'll clear for the lead in 3.
That was an unbelievable push from Malik Ray in the 51 Toyota Supra to get Keister to the front. And now Ray is going to be left to dry as Keister controls this race from the inside line.
What a move Colin Keister made to get the lead. He swaps from all the way at the top of the racetrack all the way to the bottom. You're getting an onboard look from Alan Bose now as Bose pushing Keister forward. I'm sure everybody at the front of this field. Now Bose looks to the outside trying to make something happen. Can he get the run from the outside?
And Keister doesn't have that formation directly behind him, so Alan Bose now going to work with Seth DeMerchant. They've been going back and forth, tick for tack for the lead, but now Bose going to get pushed by DeMerchant.
Bose is clear. DeMerchant is clear. Dylan Duvall trying to get clear. And maybe the top 3 that could drop down to the inside. Bose and DeMerchant are 2 that will try and look down there. Duvall tried, but the door was shut on him, so it's Bose to the point once again.
And Duvall's going to stay topside. He thinks he can get a shove, get some momentum to try and challenge those front 2. But the 2 drivers that have dominated this race continuing to do so once again. Alan Bose, Dylan Duvall now to second, and Seth DeMerchant. Bose and DeMerchant, the 2 that we've been watching all race long.
And you know what, Jacob? I think you love this because we've seen a lot of super speedway theory go into this, that if you can run up front, you have a fast car, you want to prove it. I think Bose and Merchant both are doing that right now.
Biggest question I have, I think, is for Dylan Duval, who's in the lane I'd want to be in. I would want the middle, but you're going to burn more fuel in that lead spot in the middle lane than you will anybody else. You'll be back maybe about 2 or 3 laps compared to the rest of the field, and that could factor in, especially if we don't get a lot of yellow flags.
Driver who's jumped up, one of the young guns in car number 45 out of Georgia, Donovan Strauss, the teenager, has jumped his way forward. He's in this Pro Series for the first time in his young career, trying to crack in at the top level. He rides up inside the top 5 now and doing a masterful job for himself in that Toyota Supra.
He certainly is, and he has a teammate right next to him, and Seth the Merchant. They both clinched getting into this series in thrilling fashion all the way at the season finale back at Phoenix. They're both proven while they're here running up at the front.
Duval now just ahead of Bose ever so slightly, and Strauss up to second. The Burton Kligerman Esports driver who was just signed on earlier in the year, putting a good word in for the boss man and for J.D. Laird.
We work off turn number 4, and we see several peel off to pit road at lap 25. Justin Prince a little bit early from what we expected on the strategy call, but about 5 cars out of the lead pack to pit road in front of you.
Yes, indeed. It wasn't exactly the expected call we were talking about earlier on tonight, but there was near trouble for some of those cars, mind you. Derek Justice knew he looped it in. This is the undercut call, potentially to try and split it into the 2-stop, but they're electing potentially to try and go for the early stop and then run it out at the end of the race. That's looking like the call for these competitors. Off and away they go off the pit lane at the moment, where the leaders are still grouped together.
It's a very, very interesting call, and we'll see how all these differing strategies work out if it stays green. 26 laps in when they come back to the line, and as they cross the stripe, it's almost impossible to give you a look at the top 10 because of how quickly the positions change. But across the line, it was Alan Bose leading, Dylan Duval second, Seth DeMerchant now third, Donovan Strauss rides in fourth, and Colin Keister is fifth. Malik Gray sixth, Stephen Wilson up to seventh, first time we've seen him in the top 10 tonight. Eighth, Justin Bolton. Ninth is Michael Guerrilla, and Mitchell DeYoung up now into the 10th position. They work down the back straight away, James Pike, and it's 2 by 2. They've settled it down a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Malik Ray, I think, is trying to find a dance partner. He's been the one that's been able to jump to the outside and make something happen, but everybody else, I think, pretty content to go 2 by 2 for now.
I think you're correct about that. On board with Malik Gray momentarily. They work off the exit of turn number 4. Back to the tri-oval. 27 laps go up on the board. It's Alan Bose leading another lap, but Dylan Duval and Donovan Strauss is a pair that's been pretty impressive so far. I've been really intrigued by what they've done, Blake.
I really have been, and they've both been so consistent. They've shown that speed, and they've stayed put to the middle line. They saw a lot of people going 3 wide. Well, guess what? They've stuck with it, and they find themselves running in the top 5. And there you see directly in front of you the line of North Force racing machines.
North Force hanging there up top. You figure that Derek Justice and Ryan Schoenberg will eventually find their way together. Coach Series experience, plate racing experience, those two, I think, are pairing to watch.
Yeah, I think so. And again, that line in front of the leaders that you see right here, these are the guys that just came down pit road. They tried to pit early, and they're going to run it out later in the race. So now we see a change as they work through 1 and 2. Blake, they're shuffling a little bit, one car to the top side.
Well, and this is going to be the strategy, right, that if you can work together and push each other, that hopefully you would make up more time than that snarling pack behind them, though. The last time by, that pack about 7/10 quicker than the North Force machine, so not exactly working like I'm sure they planned.
Not quite working the way they planned, but plenty of time to make it up. Meanwhile, I think we're starting to see the second pack develop towards the back of this group here. About Femiolot and Garrett Maines or so. 20th now, single file.
Single file as they work off turn number 4, and this pack still 2 by 2 towards the front of the field as they cross the line. I think Dylan Duval, he did just get to the lead for a brief moment there in the number 41. They work back towards turns 1 and 2, and this lead pack 2 by 2, it's 1 second from first down to 21st.
And they're all 2 by 2 completely stacked up, but as you have a row of about 10 cars that haven't really been working to get out of, or willing rather, to get out of line or do anything of the nature, but they still run 2 by 2 for about the first 20 positions.
Looking here at this back group here, Garrett Maines is trying to check up, but he's got Vicente Salas of Elliott Sadler Esports also in the mix, as is Brandon Cattell and Santiago Tires of Slip Angle Motorsports. Looks like Chris Overland back there too with Eric Smith.
Overland and Eric Smith are back there. They've got the Coke Series experience. They know that there's still a long way to go. 70 laps remain, 30 laps complete. Alan Bowes leads it, and the question now becomes, when do you pit if you're in this lead pack?
Well, I think you're going to get to about lap 45 is about as far as you could push it. We may see a one-stop, but I really doubt it. I think you'll start to see that middle line here in a couple of laps start to look down to try to get down for pit road.
I mean, JP talked about it a little bit in one of his earlier reports that the pit window is about maybe 45 laps or so. We've got 100 to run tonight, so you would need a yellow flag in order to make it to the end on one stop, which is possible, Jacob, but I don't necessarily know if you could bank on when that yellow will come.
No, I'm not sure you can bank on when that yellow is going to come at all. It's one of those cases where you hope you pick the right strategy and it all works out, but there's never a guarantee that it's going to work. And right now, Blake McCandless, I think what we're seeing is at least the guys who think they can win this race out front, they're content to stay out and wait.
And I think that is going to be the case. The track position is going to be the name of the game. However, I think in a couple of laps, this pack may just start to catch the draft of that North Force pack that is directly in front of everybody else. It's about a tenth of a difference now that this pack is catching them.
So maybe, just maybe, we're starting to see some pack pace strategy play into this Jacob Seelman, and that could be something to note towards the end of this race too.
It could be something to note, but again, we talk about the end of the race. There is still a long way to go before we get to the end of this race. Right now, we are just coming up on 1/3 distance. 33 laps will be in the books next time by of 100. So there's still at least one, maybe two pit stops for all these drivers that you see in this lead pack. And I'm more surprised, I think, James, that the guys who pitted early, they've not really lost a lot of ground to the pack. The pack is catching them, but not as fast as I would have thought.
But that's because the drivers who did pit early are doing what they have to do. If you come down early and you're in a smaller group, single file all the way around saves you the most time.
That it does. They work off the exit of turn number 4. This time will officially be 1/3 distance in the opening round of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. Alan Bowes, Seth DeMerchant, 1-2, just like they've been for virtually all of this race. On board now with the 41 of Dylan DeVaul, who rides in the 4th position. And now, for the first time all night, we're starting to see some of these guys settle out at the front of the field to single file. It's as if, James, they know that pit stops are coming and they need to get this lead pack sorted out. Everybody single file just about.
You need to get the pack sorted out, and if you're coming down soon, you need to get down to the inside. More often than not, you see yellow flags here at Daytona because drivers don't get to the inside lane in time and people don't recognize that they're coming down pit road. You might see that happen here tonight. Watch out for it.
Working off turn number 4 one more time. 34 laps go up on the board through the tri-oval, and another driver just snuck up into the top 10 that has impressed me, maybe how quietly he's done it. The 47 of Nathan Lyon, who has now just jumped up to 10th place that time by the start-finish line. Didn't expect to see him maybe this early. When we talk about the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Lyon was another one that didn't show up in the Daytona opener until later on in that race as well. But he's now worked his way forward pretty nicely, and you're not going to miss the paint scheme either. Very, very bright colors on the 47 for Nathan Lyon as he's now in the outside lane. And of course, commentator's curse, if you will. Just as soon as I said, oh, hey, they've settled out single file, they're back to 2x2 across the stripe, Blake McCandless. So they're ready to race for it yet again.
Well, and the reason they're double filed, that group of North Force cars has merged into this pack, is you're going to see about a line of the first 3 or so up on the bottom side of the racetrack. Alan Bowes directly behind them. He has nowhere to go but just get in line.
So this is the interesting piece of this. You've got 6 cars that came down pit road early. Malik Ray is technically your race leader, but there's not a 4th car in line on the outside. So Ray's going to have to figure out how to handle all this and figure out how to get down to the bottom to get to pit road in maybe the next 10 laps or so, Jacob.
That completely shuffled up the complexion of these leaders. Malik Gray all of a sudden was able to get past Alan Bowes there. Bowes and DeMerchant, I think, lost a little bit of momentum, and now, you're right, the game is how to find your way to the bottom of the racetrack so you can even get to pit road. Malik Gray is trapped on the outside lane. He's boxed in turn one.
Yeah, boxed in, and he's going to look to the middle, 3 wide. Oh, for just a moment, and it looks like that's going to shuffle to 24. That's Zach Nichols running in 40th place. He's going to be shoved out of line, so Malik Gray looking to pick him off by splitting him in the middle.
Malik Gray picked him off and is going to move everybody in that second lane up to the middle and leave the 24 machine completely out to dry as Nichols drops through this field like a stone, and Ray continues to lead.
Ray continues to lead for now, but how long he's going to want to stay there as opposed to trying to find his way out of that hornet's nest is another question entirely. As we see this pack work across the stripe, it's a mix of leaders and lap cars, so by scoring you know who the leader is, but Blake McCandless, it's kind of a mess in front of you.
Oh, it definitely is, as we continue to work 2 by 2 all the way throughout this field. And you got to think we are approaching that fuel window here in just a couple of laps. So Ray's got to be desperate to either get to the front or get down in line.
And as they begin to sort themselves out from pit stops, Justin Prince has a few updates from down on pit road. JP, what more can you tell us?
Well, first things first, some of the drivers have talked about the patience. They're now knowing that it's time to push. For some of the drivers, though, such as the iRacing Esports machine, receive word that their cars feel comfortable and stable. They may be one of the teams trying to push it on the strategy at the moment. Keep an eye on them. They're also quick on the pushing. But as well, one of the air drivers really making their way through the field is Danny Hansen. And it was just prior to tonight's race. It was announced by Garrett Smithley that he and his real-world sponsors would be a part of Danny Hansen's race car. They'll be all sponsored on his race car this year. Danny Hansen, of course, a former driver in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, has worked in NASCAR media since the last time he made a start on the series. Talked with him earlier this year where he talked about with everything that happened in 2020, that really propelled his comeback bid to try and get himself back into the Coke Series. And now he's one of the drivers who was back in the 30s at the start of this race. He's back inside the top 10 nearly.
At the same time, Justin Prince, I think anybody that knows Danny Hansen knows he's well aware that you can't win a race at Daytona at lap number 40, but if you stay out of trouble, you can give yourself a shot to win it on lap 99 coming to lap 100. This field is still bottlenecked on board with race leader Malik Gray, who drove from 23rd to the lead and now working off the Daytona super stretch. He's trying to find his way forward. He's the leader, but he's got a ton of traffic ahead of him in front of James Pike.
He's got tons of traffic in front of him, but those drivers have already come down pit road, so they're going to have the luxury of seeing all the green flag pit stops play out from the rearview mirror. And Malik Gray still is going to have to find a way to get to the bottom, as will everybody else on the south side.
Yeah, the traffic that has now bottlenecked this lead pack, Blake McCandless, has really thrown a wrench into this, and now we see a couple guys start to slice to the bottom of the racetrack. I believe Malik Gray did find a hole to get down to the bottom, and now he's put himself in a lot better position all of a sudden.
He does, and I think you have to imagine with that move that you'll see the native of Greer, South Carolina, as well as a couple of his dead zone teammates elect to make their way down and get onto pit road here within the next lap or two. Ray down to the bottom. Wilson is stuck on the high side, but many cars starting to migrate down to the low line.
We're going to talk about a driver that we haven't highlighted over the course of this evening, Steven Wilson. 3 wins in the top split of Road to Pro to get into this Pro Series, and one of the fastest drivers to come up for the qualifying series. A threat, I think, for a Coke Series spot.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. There were a lot of pundits that circled Steven Wilson as a favorite to threaten for a Coke Series spot, and I think we're seeing it now. Very quietly, very sneakily, he has worked his way towards the front of this field. Wilson now trying to challenge, and another name up there, Blake McCandless, Eddie Kerner up to 6th in that 19.
Yeah, no surprise to see Eddie Ball, as some would call him, make his way up to the front of the field. Awfully strong in Road to Pro. He finished it off with a bang, and I don't think anybody's shocked to see him running up here in the top 5.
You know, fun fact, Eddie Ball's a brand of guitar effects pedals, and I'm surprised no one's made more jokes on that one, but that might also be because Eddie Kerner's incredibly quick as there's a wreck in the middle of the field to bring out the first yellow.
That crash happened right in front of you, James Pike, and unfortunately, several drivers in the banking at turns 3 and 4.
Colin Bowden is one of the ones that went around. We'll take a look at the replay momentarily, but you see the damage on your screen to that number 46 machine. Pretty heavy impact, especially to the left rear quarter of his car. As we take a look at the replay, we'll see what happened as they came down the back straightaway into turn 3. They were all sort of slicing and dicing. It looked like they were trying to get themselves set up for green flag pit stops here, which would have been coming up in a few laps. This happened on lap 42 of 100. And you'll see them come together here. It was Eric Smith, Michael Guest, and then the 46 machine of Colin Bowden that came together right off the exit of turn 3. Looks like Smith tried to come in between Guest and Bowden as they entered the corner, and as Smith came through, Bowden was trying to hold his line, and just the slightest bit of contact sends the 46 around and takes out a few other cars in the wreck as well, Jacob.
Yeah, it did, and I'm surprised. Even after the contact, Eric J. Smith was able to work his way through and managed to survive that, as we'll get a look at what happened on board. Jose Solis Jr., the East Hartford, Connecticut native, just nowhere to go when everything starts stacking up, and that's how quickly things can happen in the high banks when one tiny mistake can quickly spell disaster. And now, for all of the race leaders, it is going to be a train headed down to pit road as we complete lap number 43. Justin Prince, Malik Gray leading basically everybody down in front of you.
They were just starting to discuss strategy right before they came in for this caution flag period. They were talking about potentially trying to go 2 tires and stretching it, but did miss a little bit of the pit box there. We'll lose a little bit of time for the number 51 machine with the Rowdy Energy sponsorship for tonight's action. Drivers, though, towards who hit the last caution did stay out. Zach Novak and several others have stayed on the racetrack. Colin Keister up for the Jacks, as well as Dylan Duvall. Several other cars making some slight adjustments on tape, as well as just taking 2 or 4 tires for position. It's still a one-stopper to the end, and this is now where many drivers and their preparation on their fuel strategy stints may come into play on when they can come in from this point.
And under caution, let's make it a point to mention, shall we, Blake McCandless, that we're pitting right now with 57 laps to go. All these leaders that had not yet pitted came down, 57 to go, and that first group came down at quarter distance at lap 25. So, in effect, nobody can make it to the end of the race from here. As Justin Prince said, we know everybody at some point is going to have to be back down pit road because nobody has the fuel to go all the way to the checkered flag.
And I think that's why you see this group up here, the North Force Racing Machines, make that call to stay on the racetrack. They know that nobody else can make it the entire way. And honestly, Jacob, I know that I'm sure they didn't have the speed in a solo pack perhaps that they thought that they had. But I think the one thing that works into their favor is obviously this strategy and the fact that they're going to be in front of all those wrecks that perhaps we would see, even if the pack catches them. If you're at the front, odds of you being in a wreck are pretty small, and I think you see why that strategy worked out right here.
So under caution right now, just before halfway, Malik Gray was the leader prior to pit stops. We'll wait for scoring to officially update, but as they cross the line now with 44 laps completed, Zach Novak to the lead over Brian Schoenberg. Isaac Gann to the 3rd spot. Derek Justice now up to 4th, and Taylor Hurst is 5th. So 5 cars before Malik Gray, who was the leader, sits in 6th coming off pit road. We're going to step aside here on Podium Esports, but we'll continue with more coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series coming up after these words. Welcome back to coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series opener from the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Jacob Seelman alongside Blake McCandless and James Spike in the turns, and Justin Prince down on pit road with Ryan Bauer in the control trailer, producing and punching buttons this evening for us as we work through the first race of 6 for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series, and where 40 drivers will try to trim down to 21 that will punch their golden tickets into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2021. We are just wrapping up caution for the first time in this race, which will be with 45 laps complete, restarting with 55 laps to go. Green flag back in the air. The 2019 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion is the leader, Zach Novak, but he does not have a lot of help. The outside lane very formed up. It takes a lap to get up to speed. Blake McCandless to turn one. They're 2 by 2.
And they'll continue to wind up through the gears, although Malik Ray doing a great job of pushing along that middle line. Right now it's led by Schoenberg, Derek Justice, Malik Ray, and even throws Steven Wilson into the mix.
They were all over the place. Also of note here, 4 of your top 6 came down about 20 laps ago. That's the group of drivers who stayed out on this last yellow flag, and I think probably would come in about lap 66 or so. If you're splitting the middle, if you just came down under that caution, about lap 72, 73 is the magic number you need to hit to go with 2 even runs to get to the end, Jacob.
And that's going to be the key. Do you split the difference? Do you pit somewhere else? We'll watch that as we work past the halfway point. Right now, this has got to be a good feeling for both Brian Schoenberg and Zach Novak. They each lead a lane back to turn number 1. Neither of them has been to victory lane for a while. They'd both like to change that tonight.
They certainly would, and Derek Justice going to get all to the back of Brian Schoenberg, a veteran here, if you can call him that, of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series, and he's looking to go to the top spot that he claimed earlier on in the night.
And Schoenberg is racing, I wouldn't necessarily call it for his career, but he said he's ready to upgrade. If he makes it back to the Coke Series, he may take a break if he misses out on it. So it's a big 6 races for Brian Schoenberg, but he's got North Force help with Derek Justice behind him. They're having a strong showing so far as we near halfway.
Nearing the halfway point of this race. 3 laps from halfway as they come back to the start-finish line. It's Novak on the bottom. It's Schoenberg up top, and it's Derek Justice who's trying to shove Brian Schoenberg back to the race lead. Bottom side, it's Isaac Gann pushing Novak. Inside lane prevails.
Now we'll see, is anybody going to go to that third lane? It looks like Steven Wilson, whether he's poking his nose out or willing to go to the high side with Malik Ray, we'll have to see if that's in the cards eventually, but right now, 2 by 2 throughout the field.
I think everybody just holding tight will wonder and see when the temperature of this race begins to rise. It was pretty quick to jump in the Monday Night Racing event in Talladega last night that you saw on Podium Esports. I think this might be a little bit more tempered, but still crazy in the last 20 laps or so, Jacob.
I think that's an understatement. Once we get inside of 25 to go, business is going to pick up in a really big way. Right now, it's Novak and Schoenberg, 2 guys with perhaps the most experience at the top level in this series, each leading their respective lines. It's 2 by 2 through most of the field, 22 drivers within 1 second.
And another driver, we haven't mentioned him a lot, he's running in the 3rd position, Isaac Gann, somebody who sat out a lot of the Road to Pro Series rather in 2019, got his way in despite missing the first 2 events. I think he's somebody we'll have to watch, a sleeper to perhaps steal a Coke spot.
Interesting group here, and all with a few team times. We talked about Justice, talked about Schoenberg, but Zach Novak, former Coke Series champion, too. Gann and Taylor Hurst, the Winston-Salem, North Carolina native, also with the top 5 runs so far.
Hurst doing a tremendous job. We know he has experience at the top level as well. They come back towards the start-finish line. Novak leads by a couple of inches as they cross the stripe. Schoenberg is there. Schoenberg wants the lead. Schoenberg's help from Derek Justice may get him there in 1 and 2.
Almost, but it looks like Zach Novak with big help from Isaac Gann going to storm in through on the bottom. But here comes the momentum on the top side. Justice to the back of Schoenberg, and it looks like they'll be deadlocked down the back straightaway.
We talk about partnerships. We've mentioned it a few times. You will want to watch Brian Schoenberg and Derek Justice the same way I think you'll have to keep your eyes on Chris Overland and Brandon Cattell, who incidentally are making a charge on that very top line, about 10 cars back of the leaders.
They are trying to make a charge on the outside lane right now. It is still 2 by 2 through most of the first 20 cars as they come back into the tri-oval. And this time, we will cross the halfway point in this race here at the World Center of Racing. And that means it's time to bring you the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience the newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Novak right now the leader last time by the stripe. Brian Schoenberg sits second. Isaac Gann third. Derek Justice and Taylor Hurst the front 5. Then it's Malik Ray, Alan Bose, Steven Wilson, Nathan Lyon, and Seth the Merchant through 10.
Donovan Strauss runs in the 11th spot, 12th currently to Eddie Kerner. Danny Hansen holds 13th, and 14th belongs to Colin Keister. In 15th is Jarl Time. Dylan Duvall runs 16th for Stuart Haas Esports. 17th is Garrett Maines, tying I'm back to 18th. 19th, Justin Bolton in the 10 car. 20th to the 5 of Femi Olakplay.
And 21st will go to Mitchell DeJong. 22nd is Michael Gariglia. 23rd is Michael Gonzalez. Running 24th is Santiago Tires. 25th is Vicente Salas. 26th goes to Ashton Crowder. 27th, Alex McCullum. 28th running is Ryan Doucette. 29th, Jake Matheson. And Chris Overland is 30th.
Anthony Burrows is 31st. Matt Busa sits 32nd. 33rd to Colin Bowden. 34th is Michael Guest. Zach Nichols is 35th. 36th to Blade Witt. 37th is Steve Sheehan. Brian Mercurio, Eric J. Smith, and Jose Solis Jr. round out the field. All 40 cars currently remain on the lead lap as we are now 52 of 100 laps into the opener for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series at Daytona. And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break with more than 170,000 drivers on the service and more than 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. If you're just joining us on Podium Esports, welcome and good evening. Just a little bit more than halfway through tonight's eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series broadcast from the World Center of Racing, the opening race of 6 in the qualifying series for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Jacob Seelman manning the broadcast booth above the tri-oval, joined in the turns by Blake McCandless and James Pike, with Justin Prince down on the pit lane, and I think things are slowly starting to heat up as we watch the action continue on the track. Blake McCandless, to you first over in turns 1 and 2. What have you seen through the first half? What do you think we're going to see as we work through these final 47 laps?
Well, I think you see it on your screen right now. Who is going to get to that third line? I think Malik Ray obviously has shown the speed early on to make that high side work, and obviously you're knowing that those cars in front of you have to pit in just a couple of laps, so they're looking to get that track position right now. A lot of runs you can get throughout this field. I've seen guys from 25th on back be able to charge through, so the draft, very, very important. We obviously know that it's a super speedway, but the runs that you're able to build up, I think, is more than we expected. So towards the end of this race, last 20 some odd laps, it's going to get insane.
James Pike, the 3 and 4 end of the racetrack, was Calamity Corner for the first caution of this race. Do we expect that to continue?
I think it will, and the big thing I noticed, especially in comparison to last night's Monday night racing event, there was a lot more aggression. There were faster pairs in that race, too, and it seems like the intensity level never let up. Here, I think it's a more traditional arc to this race where everybody's sort of biding their time now, but as we get closer to lap 80, lap 90, lap 100, slowly you're going to see the intensity rise, and it's going to get wilder and wilder from here on out.
Derek Justice, trouble in the middle of the pack. He is in the wall. Colin Keister shoved into the outside wall as they approach the lap traffic of Jose Solis Jr. It appears that Colin Keister got the worst of it as he was shoved into the outside retaining wall on the exit of turn 4. About 10 cars involved in this one. Steven Wilson, Brandon Cattell, but overall, Colin Keister, you see Justin Bolton is in the wall. A couple of cars collected in this one. And again, that was all a 3-wide battle working around lap traffic that didn't pan out.
So caution flag waves for the second time in this race. We'll get a look at a replay, but I believe that started as about 4 wide in the middle of the pack that went wrong when they were trying to work around and lap the 75 of Jose Solis Jr., and it was 4 wide. Justice got tipped, and it was on from there. James Pike, that is what you call wrong place, wrong time, I believe, for a lot of those guys who just, that's what can happen when you're lapping a car that's at so much less pace, being out of the draft for as long as it was, like what we saw there.
I think lapping any car off pace, period, ends up giving you those sorts of, call them butterflies in your stomach, I suppose, but that's one of the very, very cases where the probability of something like this happening goes up significantly, and it's always a moment that scares these drivers because you can have moments like this, and especially given where they caught the lap machine of Jose Solis Jr. right in the middle of turns 3 and 4, where it tends to be narrower there than anywhere else in the racetrack, save for the tri-oval. It is about the worst place that you could catch a lap car, and in that sense, maybe not a huge surprise then that we see our first big incident of the evening that takes out a good 20 cars cars or so, and plenty that were swept up in this. Derek Justice, we saw Blake mention, Alan Bowes was caught up in this. Colin Keister got some damage. Steven Wilson was involved. Looks like the 42 machine got swept up in this. Danny Hansen got caught up. Justin Bolton was there. Garrett Maines had nowhere to go. There were a few more that snuck down to the bottom and just tried to get away, but couldn't make it happen. Michael Gonzalez was caught up in this as well. Brandon Cattell, one of the drivers for Slip Ankle Motorsports, who we figured would have some pace after his win at Talladega in the GOAT Series in September. He involved in this too, and that will whittle down the amount of competitive cars probably to somewhere in the 30-ish ballpark or so, Jacob.
Just finished up pit stops. Justin Prince, real quick, a lot of cars still in the pits in front of you. A lot of guys trying to get damage repair. This one really changed the complexion of this race.
At least 10, 15 cars still getting damage repair. It was predicted by Malik Ray on his radio 2 laps prior to that caution flag and that big incident that they were expecting what is essentially the swallow method, where the lap car will try stick to the bottom of the racetrack and get swallowed by the pack. He's seen it coming and unfortunately collects multiple drivers. Vicente Sal is reporting significant damage on his race car. Several other competitors like Justin Bolton blew their motors. Alan Bowes just finished getting significant damage repair, significant right front damage. Derek Justice, both sides of the race car demolished. While others who are trying to play it safe, they're trying to somehow find some spare front bumpers in the pit lane to repair their race cars. Plenty of demolished race cars in the pit lane still. This could be a major complexion for this series. It was a concern for some of the drivers entering with Daytona opening up the season. If you struggle or get into an incident here, Jacob, it's a hard hill to climb. Guess what? That just made half the field's hill big.
Let's pause 15 seconds, take a quick break. We'll be back with more of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series here on Podium Esports right after this. Welcome back to coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Daytona International Speedway, working underneath the biggest caution, or rather the caution for the biggest incident that we've had so far tonight. Maybe as many as 15 drivers with damage or decently affected by the crash that just took out a good portion of the middle of the pack. As Jacob Seelman in the broadcast booth, Blake McCandless and James Pike out in the turns, Justin Prince down on pit road and working under caution. Man, oh man, this is one of those where I think we're about to see the real intensity begin to rise to the surface as the field is 2 by 2, and it looks like we're going to get ready to resume action with about 42 laps to go here at Daytona International Speedway. We'll see if the pace car takes the look down to pit road. It will, and we'll get set to come back to green. Amazingly, still 38 cars on the lead lap right now. It's Malik Ray and Eddie Kerner who survived. They're at the front of the field. We go back to green, and how about Brian Schoenberg and Zach Novak? This caution a big help to them. Blake McCandless, it keeps Novak's track position. He's in this mix in one.
He certainly is, and he has a teammate in Isaac Gann to kind of run along with them, as well as Taylor Hurst. But right now, the bottom looks like where you want to be. 4 cars in good formation. They're going to go right by Eddie Kerner and Zach Novak, who try to make the middle work.
Taylor Hurst is back in the 6th spot, and he just about got turned by the 45 and Donovan Strauss to get down to the bottom off that restart, and it might not have paid off in the end because Kerner's starting to get the help from Zach Novak, who's right behind him from Strauss, and Seth the Merchant up in that high line to the outside lane, beginning to roll after the restart.
Outside lane beginning to roll. Can they get clear is the problem. Right now, Eddie Kerner's trying. He's got a big shove from Novak. He might lead at the line. Survey says not quite. Missed it by 1,000th of a second to Malik Ray. Malik on the bottom now with help from Brian Schoenberg. Schoenberg trying to shove that 51 clear.
And that is all he's trying to do, try to get the 51 clear, who got a little bit of a shout-out from his boss man, Kyle Busch. We saw Kyle win Monday Night Racing last night. Can that 51 repeat here on Podium Esports?
We know Malik Ray's got prowess on the super speedways. I think a lot of you on Twitch have seen his clip of his victory in the iRacing Daytona 500 from a few years ago. He can get it done. Don't be shocked if he ends up taking home the checkered flag tonight.
Yeah, it's one of those where I don't think we can predict who's going to win this one yet. Still, 21 cars within 1 second as they get ready to come back to the stripe. This time, Eddie Kerner, the advantage on the outside. His momentum from Novak was able to carry him to the lead by a half car length, but here comes Malik back on the bottom of the racetrack.
And Kerner, I think you have to give advantage to him. Novak formed up with him very nicely. And again, everybody in that middle lane started to get bumper to bumper. I think you'll see Kerner poke out in front here down the Daytona super stretch.
Kerner out in front by a hood with help from Zach Novak and Donovan Strauss. So a little bit of Toyota to back up the Ford, but Toyota down on the bottom too. Malik Ray is there, and then another Ford. Where's the Chevys, Jacob? That's the biggest question.
The Chevys are shuffled a little bit back right now. It is a party up at the front of the field between the Blue Ovals and the Toyotas as they work off turn number 4 and back towards the stripe. Now inside the final 40 laps of this race. 61 down, 39 to go. Malik Ray back to the lead in a dead heat with Eddie Kerner in 1.
And it seems like time and time again, we've seen this all night, the ebb and flow at the front of the field. That is still continuing on right now as nobody can decide who wants to be at the front. Malik Ray on the bottom, Eddie Kerner on the top.
Still parked there. My biggest question, who goes to the outside and makes that third lane happen like we saw Malik do earlier, like we saw Brandon Cattell do earlier? Someone's going to try it. The question is who and when, but we still have 38 laps plus on the board, Jacob, so maybe a little bit of time before we see that.
I'm surprised you didn't mention where will they make the move, and I think the answer is coming off turn 4 to the tri-oval with as tight as this pack has been. They cross the line one more time, and it's again almost a dead heat between Ray and Kerner. We saw this at the start of the race, didn't we, where you had these two lines at the front of the field and nobody could really get an advantage for more than a lap or two, with the exception of Alan Bose. Bose was probably the one who was best able to control this race. The problem is now he is mired deep in the pack. Bose is back in the 26th position last time by the stripe and gonna have some serious work to do if he wants to get back towards the front of the field before this is over. Right now, the newer names are the ones that kind of strategically work their way forward. And how about a call to the 98th, the Elliott Sadler Esports driver into the top 10 for the first time all night. Ashton Crowder trying to work his way back into the Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2021. He's cracked the top 10 and wants to make some noise.
Certainly so, and I think for Ashton Crowder, the question was going to be, do you have a little bit of rust after not competing near the tail half of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series? But he's certainly showing that the time off did not deter him one bit. They work around a lap car. We'll see this a little bit more. The field snarling towards another lap traffic.
All set to Merchant just about got turned in the middle of the pack. It was, I believe, Fabiola who nearly got into the 57, but back to Crowder very quickly. Remember where he got his one win? Auto Club in the Coke Series this season. Where are we next week, Jacob?
Auto Club. Correct. It's going to be interesting that this first stretch of the season sets itself up very nicely for somebody like Ashton Crowder. So that'll be a storyline to watch. How about a call to Jarl Tyen, who's worked his way from 39th all the way the last row of the grid. He rides 12th right now in this lead pack and is trying to make something happen. So Tyen doing an impressive job, as is Matt Busa right there alongside him in the 34, carrying maybe the number that people most associate Busa with, that we haven't seen since the Championship 4 run a couple of years ago that he made in 2018. Busa now up inside the top dozen. So he's doing himself some pretty yeoman's work here as we work to 35 laps to go. This time by the top two, still Malik Ray inside, Eddie Kerner outside, and Eddie Kerner wants the lead back. He had the momentum, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Short lane around appears to be the fast way.
It certainly does. And again, we're seeing just how important cooling down is. You can see Novak running just a couple inches off the back bumper of Eddie Kerner, but he just can't get any closer. He'll give him a shove down the back straightaways. You'll see Kerner will poke out a little bit, but it's just not enough and consistent enough to put him out to the race lead.
Just enough there. Meanwhile, I talked about that third lane a few laps ago. Looks like it's coming in, and it's Michael Guest in the 33 machine, the beneath car, beginning to make the charge with Alan Bose and Chris Overland in tow.
Overland in tow is a name that we haven't talked much about tonight. They're still deep in the field, however, outside the top 20 as it sits right now, trying to work their way forward. And now we go 3 wide all of a sudden. It's getting really spicy at the front of the field. The third lane came calling, and now the 45 battling for the lead. Donovan Strauss.
One blue oval sandwiched in between 2 Toyotas. Donovan Strauss now to the front of the field, leading the outside line, and they got some momentum up there. Donovan Strauss, the nose out front, he's in the race lead.
Strauss is clear. The Merchant may be as well. Strauss is going to hang high on that outside lane. Will he drop down? No, he'll stay committed to the very top. And here comes Kerner. Here comes Ray. Both charging back on the inside lane of the exit of turn 4.
3 by 3 by 3 by 3, almost 5 rows deep at the front of the field as they work down to the stripe. Middle lane trying to prevail. Eddie Kerner, maybe, no. Malik Ray in a dead heat at the start-finish line. They head back towards turn 1. Strauss is still there up top.
And the duo from Horizon Racing are linked up there with Donovan Strauss and Seth the Merchant. You also have Michael Guest in tow, but you see the momentum loss for Donovan Strauss. It's Ray out front, then the second, then the third line as they're staggered. Oh, contact, and they somehow save it.
Eddie Kerner just got to Brian Schoenberg, and Eddie Kerner, I think, picked up some damage as they passed the left machine of Derek Justice. But left front damage on Eddie Kerner's number 19 machine. We'll have to see how that pans out over the course of the final 30 laps or so.
If it's damage, it's ever so slight. I don't know it's going to be too much, but you never know with how sensitive the aerodynamics are here at Daytona, what might matter and what might not. How about the Georgia young gun, Donovan Strauss, trying to clear his way to the front of the field with a big shove from Seth to Merchant back to 1.
2 drivers that finished first and second in the season finale of Road to Pro trying to get it done, but DeMerchant had to back off quite a bit, about a car length off of Strauss. You see the difference that makes. Michael Guest in the middle, he's now looking for the race lead.
That absolutely killed the outside line's momentum, and now they're going to get a chance to gather it back up, but Strauss lost about a car length on Eddie Kerner and Malik Ray to his inside, and it's only 3 cars up at the outside now.
That outside lane kind of fell apart really quickly, and now Malik Ray back to the front of the field. Eddie Kerner trying to challenge a half car length back on that outside lane just as quickly as Donovan Strauss was there. He's now almost back outside the top 10, dropped from the lead to 8th, and maybe going to fall further than that.
Well, and that's the thing about that third lane. You have to be committed, and as soon as it falls apart, you can see very quickly Strauss, who was leading this race for a couple of moments, all the way back to 10th and perhaps falling further back.
Perhaps he needs some help, but it might not come. I have a feeling the rest of this field does not want to go 3 wide all the way around just yet, because we know just how much more difficult it becomes to maintain this pack. If you go 3 by 3 by 3, it's an instant way to make everything a little bit more dicey.
Oh, and it's only going to get dicier from here. When we cross the stripe this time by, it'll be 30 laps remaining in this race. Malik Ray still out front. Eddie Kerner, Brian Schoenberg. I'm impressed that some of the guys who were mired back outside the top 10 have managed to work their way forward again. Ashton Crowder has forced his way up to 6th in the running order now. He's been able to make some moves and may have a shot at this.
Maybe, just maybe, we might see Ashton Crowder make a move, but there are still about 20 to 25 drivers, I think, that have a legitimate shot at this. So long as your car's not torn up from an incident, you've got a chance. It's Daytona. You can't really rule anyone out, as that outside line really does die off, and Strauss will drop back into the high line.
That he will. Oh, Brandon Cattell in that blue number 48 as he gets shuffled and they work around him much slower. One of the cars that got damaged from that big crash, that shuffled the lead pack a little bit. It kicked Zach Novak all the way up to the 3rd lane outside. One car nearly going around in the middle of the pack. I don't know how they managed to keep everything going as they work off turn number 2. James, the pack almost scattering now.
The pack scattered, but that broke up all kinds of draft and all kinds of momentum, and somebody might be able to take advantage of the chaos and make a charge of Malik Ray on the outside, but everybody that was up top managed to get right back up behind the 19. So Donovan Strauss is there. Zach Novak is there. The 98 of Ashton Crowder also there, but it's now a front pack of maybe about 8 cars, 9 cars.
I don't know if we'll be able to get a replay, but that looked like it started around the 6 of Jarl Tyen is where all that chaos seemed to start, and it's now put about a second between the top 11 and everybody else. So it's about an 11-car breakaway, and then everybody in the rest of the pack behind them trying to now catch back up, as we're going to get a look at the replay and see exactly where all this started to scatter. And yes, indeed, it was right there around Tyen. He had to gather it up. He may have gotten some help, and that was almost disastrous and could have easily been a second huge crash. Now you see it, a couple different packs here as we work inside of 30 laps to go. It'll be 27 to go across the stripe. Malik Ray still leading this party, but now the catch is, can those who are behind start to catch up? It's a 12-13 car lead draft as they head back to turn 1, Blake McCandless.
Well, we've seen the draft is very easy to get wrapped up in, so I think we won't see too much trouble from about the 32 some odd cars that were a part of this pack to eventually get back to the front. I do have to say, though, Seth the Merchant and both Tyen, just what a save those two drivers had.
Biggest question I have now, when this pack comes together, we'll be somewhere in the ballpark of at least 20 laps to go, probably less. Crazy, I think, is going to be an understatement, Jacob Seelman. I think everybody's going to flip the go switch on at that point.
I think the go switch just got flipped as they work off turn number 4. How about the move to the third lane all the way up the outside? Chris Overland and Jarl Tyen with a full head of steam. It is now 3 by 3 by 3 at the front of the field. Tyen's there. He wants the lead in 1.
Nearly wrecking 2 laps ago. He was 12th 1 lap ago, and now challenging for the race lead is the driver of the 6. An impressive drive for him as they now work 3 by 3, 3 rows deep at the front of the field.
He's got a black car. He can charge to the field like Earnhardt did at Talladega in 2000, but he's got some white on the cars. Chris Overland bounces off the fence and gets in Andy Kerner and just about caused another big wreck, and will maybe see 2 cars go sideways. Seth the Merchant saves it. I think somehow we're going to say green flag racing, Jacob.
How did we not wad up a whole bunch of cars right there? Quarter distance to go, 25 laps. Oh, Overland almost below the double yellow line, coming to the stripe. Colin Keemster was there. Somehow they all got through it, but Jarl Tyen now clear to the lead. Malik Ray and Eddie Kerner giving chase.
Oh, and it looks like, there's trouble here in turns 1 and 2. The pack is around. Santiago Tiras is involved. Seth the Merchant is involved here. Michael Garigula, heavy damage on his machine. Garrett Mates is sprinkling along. Oh, a couple of cars. 1 car into the outside retaining wall started all this. It may have been Alex McCullum, or no, it was the 46 with contact with Colin Bowden. We had seen Bowden and DeMerchant was that kind of congregation that we talked about that kind of started that mess in 3 and 4. Bowden was slowing off the pace, and it looks like some contact with him and Eric Smith kind of caused a huge stack up that takes out a bunch of cars here in 1 and 2. There's the aftermath.
And there's a look at the replay right there. It was contact. You had, when you get a car bouncing into the fence and then coming down into traffic, it gets disastrous really quickly. Seth DeMerchant, I think, one of those who got the worst of it. I saw very, very heavy damage to the front end of his number 57, and he's one of the drivers that pretty much dominated this race, and now under caution with what will be 24 laps to go. We get a look at it on board. Vicente Salas going to try and drive through the smoke. They're crashing, and there's DeMerchant. Salas hard on the binders. What a job he did to manage to at least get slowed up, but you still see, unfortunately, Blake, some damage to the front end of his car, but it could have been even worse than what it was.
Well, it could have been a lot worse for kind of 2 wrecks that have all happened around the number 9 Ford Mustang of Eric Smith. But luckily for him, we've seen kind of both of these wrecks that he's been wrapped up in kind of starting around him. But for the most part, he's been able to avoid a good amount of trouble in that car. But you see running on the speedway, hardly anybody up on the banking. They're all running on the apron, either trying to save or just trying to obviously feel things out. But I do have to say, though, the number 6, what a drive, wrecking to 12th to 1st in just a span of 2 laps. An incredible job there by Tyen, who was able to take the race lead.
Yeah, Jarl Tyen, oh my goodness, what a job he's done. We've got cars on pit road in front of Justin Prince. Justin.
Those are among the drivers, remember, who came a little bit earlier on in this race. They are electing to try and top up and go towards the back of the field. For many of the drivers, though, it's a discussion of, do they want to use a tire set? For Schoenberg, right side damage being repaired. Hurst topping off on the gas. Same for Novak as well as Isaac Gann and several others. It's also been discussed about left side tires for Ashton Crowder and a few other drivers. They're off and away. Multiple different strategies come into play. Other drivers electing to get a full 4 set of tires, with them sliding the tires to check up for the incident and getting repairs done to the back of the cars. That's specifically among the drivers in the low line camp.
So caution flag, pit stops, and now what'll be a sprint to the finish. We're going to take a quick moment to step aside here on Podium Esports, and when we come back, we will hopefully bring you all the way to the checkered flag from the World Center of Racing from Daytona International Speedway. This is Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. We'll be back after this.
We are back at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, where the field is rolling out for the start of today's 400-lap race on this 0.625-mile racetrack. And just as the field comes all around turn number 4, the sunshine peeks through, helping warm things here. Philadelphia leads him down. Benny Parsons on the outside. The green flag flies, and the first Union 400 Winston Cup race from North Wilkesboro is underway. Everybody nicely through turns number 1 and 2 as Bill Elliott has the lead, and Dale Earnhardt has jumped into second position, followed by Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison. So here we go. It's just about to go away. They've flown coming out of turn 4. Earnhardt gets the lead. We had just heard from our spotters that Neil won. Dale Earnhardt is on his last lap. This will be his 24th career win. Dale Earnhardt wins the first Union 400 at North Wilkesboro.
We'll bring you back radio style as we're working through a couple of technical difficulties now. Inside of 20 laps to go in the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series opener from the World Center of Racing. Jarl Tyen continuing to control the field for the moment. They come back to the stripe this time. Malik Ray trying to work the middle to upper groove of the racetrack, but Tyen with help from Eddie Kerner. That's the front two as they head back to 1 and 2.
And Tyen done a marvelous job here at the front of the field, but it looks like Kerner and Malik Ray going to work in tandem. Tyen trying to get some help from the young gun in Donovan Strauss directly behind him, but just like we've seen a lot, the middle line starting to work. Kerner to the front.
There goes Eddie Kerner with help from Malik Ray and Alan Bowes. It's that top line that's got 2 cars ahead. Kerner will drop down to the inside and control that bottom lane, and it's Malik Ray and Alan Bowes with Chris Overland rocking the top side.
Eddie Kerner trying to take control as they work off turn number 4. Tyen now all of a sudden getting shuffled. He had the lead, and that's how quickly things change. Eddie Kerner now out front. Tyen takes a peek to the middle of the racetrack. There's nowhere to go. Malik Ray with the momentum. He edges ahead at the stripe. Back to turn 1. It's Bowes pushing Malik Ray, and the third lane coming up top.
Well, and Ray not able to clear down with Kerner, who gets to the bottom line. But here comes the charge from lane number 3. Michael Guest is at the front of it. He's got drafting help from Femi Olot. That's the name we haven't mentioned tonight.
Femi Olot, part of the Total Advantage Motorsport group, trying to push Michael Guest to the front, and Guest will be clear. He'll drop down 1 lane, drop down 2 lanes like an elevator, and go all the way to the inside. So Olot now up top. It's the 74 of Taylor Hurst in second in that lane, and Isaac Gann third on the high side.
Where did Michael Guest come from? He was 7th a lap ago, and now he leads this party. 16 laps to go as they cross the stripe. It's Guest out front. It's 3 by 3. Behind them, middle lane trying to rally. Malik Ray wants the lead back, and here comes the 5 of Femi Olot for the top spot.
It looks like patience has gone out the door as we have 16 laps to go here from the World Center of Racing. Guest up at the front of the field. They work 3x3 for about second race, stuck in the middle as they work around lap traffic.
You've got 3 cars up top, the 3 that we mentioned the last time they were here over in turn 3. And then the question is who goes up top, who from about 15th, 16th on back decides to make the move to the top lane and make it 3x3x3 proper at the front, Jacob.
I don't know. It is almost 3x3 proper at the front of the field right now. It'll be 15 laps to go when they cross the stripe. It is now Michael Guest out in front by about a half car length. Malik Ray is not done. He knows that middle lane is where his car has liked to be. He's got help from Alan Bowes, who's got help from Chris Overland.
And it looks like that third line going to be pulled in tow. Isaac Gann trying his best to hold on. We've seen as soon as that second car start to leave the third lane, nearly contact in the middle with Chris Overland. Third lane starting to work and gain steam.
Michael Guest just about got turned by Eddie Kerner down on the inside. Here comes Femi Olot to the outside as Malik Ray drops from the middle to the bottom, and Olot will go to that middle lane and lead Taylor Hurst, the first car, in that third move.
That was a big move right there by both Femi Olot and Malik Ray. It completely changes the complexion of this lead draft. It's now Malik Ray, the short way around on the bottom of the racetrack. He'll lead across the stripe. 14 laps to go. Femi Olot to second. Michael Guest trying to shove Malik Ray in one.
Yeah, and that third line is starting to die pretty quickly, isn't it? But Malik Ray not going to care about that. He goes to the top spot with help from Michael Guest. Again, a lap car slowly in front of them. Tie-in goes to the middle trying to make a move. Excuse me, that's Olot.
Olot there in the middle. Ray up there. Lap car down on the inside as he will go to the very bottom of the racetrack on the apron and get out of the way. We'll see what happens over the course of these final 13 laps and or change, but we're beginning to see the 3x3x3 form, Jacob, proper this time.
3x3x3 aside from Malik Ray right out in front of this field. Ray trying to hold them all at bay across the stripe again. 13 laps remain. It's the Rowdy Energy driver out in front leading the snarling pack back to one.
And he's doing a masterful job of it now. He could go to the middle line now if he wanted to block a run from Femi Olot here off of 2. Malik Ray in a league all of his own off of turn 2.
Malik Ray all by himself on the bottom, no one alongside him, and they are trying to get the run in the middle, but everybody on the inside this time by with the run that's just too strong. The 51 of Malik Ray carrying the Rowdy Energy banner up the front. He caught the apron and just about slid up into the middle lane. That could have been big, Jacob.
It could have been very big. Femi Olot almost had to take evasive action. Femi Olot now with the run is all the way alongside the Rowdy Energy number 51 Toyota of Malik Ray. That's the battle for the race lead. It's within a quarter of a tenth of a second. Malik Ray now with the shove from Michael Guest, the third lane trying to rematerialize.
And what a job that third line is doing with just 2 drivers. Taylor Hurst, Isaac Gann, a pair of North Force Racing companions trying to get it done on the high side. They have quite a run. Look at the run they have. Taylor Hurst looking to go to the top spot.
Taylor Hurst and Isaac Gann all by themselves. That's not the first time we've seen that happen in the outside lane, but nothing in the middle of 3 and 4. The momentum completely dies, and Malik Ray back out in front again.
Malik Ray back out in front, goes from the middle back to the bottom. He's trying to block up the momentum everywhere he can. 11 laps to go. This time by, and one of the drivers who's trying to find some momentum but has nowhere to put it, the 16 of Chris Overland.
And Overland's just going to stick it right in the middle, but you're exactly right. If he gets clear of Taylor Hurst, does he risk going into the top side? It looks like he's going to peek out for a moment. Not sure if he's just cooling down the nose of that Mustang or if he wants to try and test things in the top line.
When will Olot get the help from Alan Bowes? Where will Michael Guest go if he can get alongside Malik Ray? What will that top pairing of Taylor Hurst do? How about Chris Overland? He's decided to go up there and make this interesting. He now leads that third lane.
Overland was looking for somewhere to put the momentum. He may have found it up on the high lane of the racetrack. Top side next to that safer barrier for the number 16 as he works around the long way back across the stripe. It's still Malik Ray and Femi Olot, the top 2. Michael Guest trying to make something happen, but nowhere to go back in 1.
Well, they're going to have a big head of steam. Remember, Taylor Hurst had some clean air on his nose, so he's got a bit of race car to try and shove Chris Overland to the lead right here. So we'll see the run that Overland is able to get on the top side as he has the 74 all over the back bumper.
Where will these four on the outside get the runs? How will they sidetrack that middle lane? We've not talked about that factor in this at all, that they're going to have to lean on that middle lane and bunch it up in order to get the runs and keep that middle lane at bay.
Coming off turn number 4, this time it'll be 9 laps to go when they get back to the stripe. Malik Ray gets off the bottom, and that's going to open the door for Michael Guest across the line. Guest wants the race lead. He's got the race lead. Back to turn 1.
And it looks like a pair of dead zone teammates up in control at the front of the field. Michael Guest on the bottom, Malik Ray to the middle. You have Eddie Kerner in the 5 of Femi Olot directly behind him. It is a bunch of cars working together here at the front.
Dead zone in that first row, total advantage in that second row, and then a free-for-all from out the third row on back as Overland continues to creep up, bringing that third lane with them. But again, they need more help, and this is where we go 2 by 2. I have a hunch it may sit like this for a little bit, Jacob, before we get to the end.
It's going to sit like this for a little bit, but it's not going to sit like this for very long. It can't. We're coming to 8 laps to go. If you want to make the moves, you've got to make them now. This is where all the money is made and the points are earned. 8 laps to go. About 20 miles to decide the finish. It's Malik Ray and Michael Guest in the banking.
And you have to know every point is going to matter. When you look at the 2019 Pro Series standings, 2 points was all it took for both Brian Blackford and Casey Tucker to be left out of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series last year. Every spot going to matter. Novak to the top.
Novak now going to join Overland and give a little bit more help to that third line, which is trying to develop, but there's nothing going there. It may be somebody in the second group, Jacob, that jumps out there and makes that third line go.
That's what I'm believing. Duval was looking at it, but he seems to content to just sit and wait right now. Coming back to the line, it's still the middle lane advantage. 7 laps to go. Malik Ray leading it. How long can he? Novak, that third lane getting closer still.
And I think the real question is, Jacob, how much longer is Femi Olot going to be content running behind Malik Ray there in the second lane? The third lane is charging. Overland, a big shove to Zach Novak, who moves forward a couple of rows.
They will all charge. All Ray got the bump from Olot, and it sent him down to the inside lane. So Ray now the first car on the inside, and it's Femi Olot leading that middle lane. But Zach Novak has drawn even with the 5 car out of turn 4.
He draw even with Femi Olot for a moment, but now he's fallen back a car length. It's now 2 rows that Novak has to pass to get to the front. That's a little bit of breathing room for Femi Olot across the line. Malik Ray, a car length clear out in front. It's a free-for-all behind them.
It is, and Malik Ray in control. He can go. Will he go to the middle to block, or will he tuck it down in line with Michael Guest? It looks like off of 2. He'll keep to the bottom. He's with Guest. He's with Kerner in the bottom lane.
Ray with the car length on Olot, with a car length on Novak, and Olot looked to go high, maybe thought about blocking Zach Novak, and then thought better of it, but it is a proper third lane now, coming to 5 laps to go at the line, Jacob.
5 to go when they get back to the tri-oval. Malik Ray trying to deliver what would no doubt be a big victory for his sponsor, for Kyle Busch, the Busch family tonight. It's 5 to go for the 51. The Rowdy Energy colors still out in front. Malik Ray in the Toyota Supra lead them back to turn 1, and he is all the way clear with Michael Guest.
And Guest was clear for just about a moment to go to the middle if he wanted to before that door was shut by Femi Olot. Again, will Alan Bowes work up to the top side and try to get the run off the Sunoco machine? For now, they're still 2 by 2.
Big head of steam for Zach Novak, but Malik Ray read the run that Femi Olot was getting with help from Alan Bowes, who jumped up to the middle lane to block it, which allowed Michael Guest to draw even with the 51 on the inside. So it's Guest down bottom, Ray in the middle, and Novak up top.
10 miles to go when they get back to the line. I'm not sure that that was the smartest move, but it may work out for Malik Ray. I doubted it for a moment, but he's now getting a big push from the 5 of Femi Olot. Michael Guest, though, the short way around is there. Now Olot abandons the 51, goes topside 3 wide for the lead.
And Malik Ray going to get abandoned there in the middle. He'll eventually be picked up by Alan Bowes, but Olot eventually left him out to dry. 4 laps to go. They are 3 wide for second, and now Murray trying to claw back to the lead.
Olot with the run way up top. Ray with the run in the middle. Guest dropping back by about a car length on that inside lane as Olot and Ray now just ahead, but it's 3 cars deep for about the first 10 rows maybe.
Can they sustain this another 3 laps? That's the question. They've got to at least make it to the white flag for us to have a race. 3 by 3 by 3 to the line. It is still Malik Gray out in front, but it's a dead heat with Femi Olat. They're still 3 wide, back to the banking.
And when we say dead heat, there was a dead heat at the line. 0.000 was the margin that Malik Gray held. They are still 3 wide. Nobody giving an inch here with just a couple of laps to go.
2.5 laps to go. Femi Olat now in front by a hood. He'll have the opportunity to drop down in front of Malik Gray if he wants to, and does, and goes from the 3rd lane to the very inside to keep Michael Guest at bay. And so Malik Gray will have the run in the middle and Novak up top.
Popsicle sticks coming from the flag stand as they come back into the tri-oval. 2 laps, 5 miles. For now, race leader Femi Olat. Was he able to read the draft at the right time? We'll find out. They head back to turn 1 for the penultimate time. Femi Olat leads the way.
And Olat out in front with Michael Guest, and it looks like that bottom lane formed up about as well as it can. Overland will back off the Novak. That's going to kill the 3rd line here for a moment. Here comes Michael Guest looking for the lead, shoved by Malik Gray up the middle.
Guest pulled right out from underneath Femi Olat, right in front of Malik Gray, and went back to the front as Guest will jump ahead of Olat and swap places with the 5 machine and go to the front with Ray in the middle, Novak up top still. They've not moved those 3 lanes as they come to get the white flag this time by.
But did Michael Guest make his move too soon? It gives Malik Gray a chance to counterattack. They come to the stripe. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go. Here from Daytona, they'll race it back. It's Michael Guest leading. Will they come back that way? Turn 1 for the final time.
Into 1 and 2 on the 31 degrees of banking here in turn 1 and 2 for the final time. Michael Guest out front by about a car length over Malik Gray. Olat over the back. Olat gonna look low. Now go low. Guest throws the block.
Guest throws the block. Everybody on the inside lane gets checked up. Eddie Kerner goes sideways. Here comes Malik Gray with help from Alan Bose. They'll wreck in the middle of turn 3. We'll say green flag to the line. Ray with a nose out ahead of Michael Guest and Dylan Duvall on the top side, but it's the man from Greer, South Carolina, leading them as they come out of turn 4 for the final time.
It's Malik Gray trying to come home to the checker. They stack up behind him, but Malik Gray with the advantage, wrecking behind the leader. Malik Gray will win the season opener for the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series at Daytona by just a half car length over Alan Bose. Bose gave him the push at just the right time, and it worked out as the pack came flying apart about 100 yards from the start-finish line. Malik Gray, undoubtedly not only a huge victory for him, but a huge victory for his sponsor, Rowdy Energy, for the Busch family. Big, big win tonight for that entire organization.
It certainly is, and while you talk about the absolute and just jubilation down there on pit road from the Rowdy Energy bunch, there is a fair amount of drivers who got caught in that accident on the last lap, and we know obviously Ray comes out, he gets the max points, but when you look at that point situation, a lot of drivers gravely affected by that contact through 3 and 4, and it's going to send a lot of drivers who were up front and competitive tonight home packing and wishing that they could have gotten a little bit more.
This was Kyle Busch week on Podium Esports. Clearly, that's all it comes down to. Kyle Busch gets the win in Monday Night Racing last night, and tonight it's his driver in the Rowdy Energy Toyota Supra, Malik Gray, who shows off his plate racing chops. We mentioned it a little bit through the broadcast. We talked about how Malik Gray had a victory in an iRacing Daytona 500 2 years ago. He backs that up with what is arguably, and I would argue convincingly, his biggest plate win since that day tonight to the Pro Series opener from Daytona.
What a job he did to be able to read the run, even as the pack diminished on that final lap, to read the run, to get the help, and he needs to be thanking Alan Bose. I saw Alan Bose come there for a dual burnout, but if not for Bose's push, and that 21 stayed committed all the way to the bitter end, ducked down at the last possible second. If not for Bose, I'm not sure Malik Gray wins that race, but man, oh man, that is Daytona right there. what a drive, what a finish for some of those top finishers. And how about Eric J. Smith? He was involved in a little bit of everything. We'll get a look at the results here. Comes back to a top 5 finish. It's Malik Ray getting the victory, 7/100ths of a second between he and Alan Bowes. Michael Guest somehow came through for 3rd place. Femi Olot 4th. Eric J. Smith, as we said, a top 5. 6th to Zach Novak. 7th, Anthony Burrows. Don't know that we mentioned his name hardly at all tonight. Eddie Kerner, after being on the apron at the white flag. 8th, Dylan Duval. 9th, and somehow Chris Overland manages a top 10 finish out of the chaos.
11th in this race. How about Jarl Tyan? Not a name that we talked about all that much today for his crazy run through the field with about 20 laps to go, but he comes on P11. 12th, a good start for Mitchell de Jong, who I think is going to feature pretty heavily at some point in this Pro Series campaign, but I think the plate race, he'll take that. Same from Matt Busa, the 34 car. He came up 13th. 14th went to the 52 of Jake Matheson. Blade Wint with a 15th place finish at the end of it all. Santiago Tires for Blizzard Esports was 16th. 17th, the 77 of Ryan Doucette. Garrett Maines for Richmond Raceway Esports Development finished in the 18th position. 19th to the 98 car of Ashton Crowner, and Nathan Lyon completed the top 20 tonight. Blake McCandless.
Well, and that rounds out the top 20 of drivers who are ahead of the curve. And these guys, well, they got their work cut out for them. They start after race number 1 below the 20-driver threshold to qualify into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Taylor Hurst finishes in 21st. Danny Hansen finishes up in 22nd. A long-time regular in the top echelons of iRacing. Stephen Sheehan brings it home 23rd. Brian Mercurio finishes in 24th, directly ahead of Brian Schoenberg in 25th. 26th goes to Zach Nichols. Donovan Strauss, he was a car, the JDR Graphics Toyota, that went hard into the outside wall into turn number 3, flipped over, and he was obviously a part of that final accident. Isaac Gann brings it home in 28th, swept up in that as well. Michael Griglia is 29th, and rounding out the top 30 is Colin Bowden.
Bowden 30th. Behind him, a couple of drivers on the lead lap. Vicente Salas 31st, Seth DeMerchant 32nd. Drivers from here on back, a lap or more down. Derek Justice 33rd, Brandon Cattell 34th, Michael Gonzalez 35th, Alex McCollum 36th, 37th to Colin Keister. Keister 9 laps down, Stephen Wilson 10 down in 38th, Justin Bolton 39th, and Jose Solis Jr. in 40th. Both of those drivers well down in the running order and out of this race before the checkered flag. And we're going to get a chance to catch up with some of the drivers who were top players in this finish. We will throw it down pit road. Justin Prince going to be standing by with what I imagine is going to be an extremely happy Malik Ray.
He has been pumped up on his stream for the past few minutes. When he came across the stripe screen for 20 straight seconds, Malik, how does it feel to win at Daytona to start off the Pro Series?
Oh man, dude, it just feels it's just I don't have any words. I'm at a loss for words. The whole reason why I even won that race was because of all of my teammates: Alan Bowes, Eddie Kerner, Femi, then Michael Guest, then Colin Keister, and Houston, and Dustin and Jarrett for all the work. Yeah, man, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm just really happy.
Let's talk about those closing laps, because it was looking like it was hectic. You had the total advantage in dead zone cars along with you. Heard a bit of communication here and there where you guys were trying to control the front. Then it got crazy with 2 to go. Break it down from your perspective.
Alan had damage behind me, and Femi had just got clear, and then Michael Guest was on the bottom. And I was trying to get clear of the top groove, but I didn't want to go up and leave Alan in the middle because he had damage. So I just tried to just hold the middle for the last lap. That something happened going in turn 3. There was like a massive record or whatever. They checked up, and I just stayed in the middle. And I told I just told him to go high, and it just worked out. And I just crossed the line first. Yeah.
Overall, a great start to the campaign. Now, next is Auto Club. Your approach for that race?
I'm gonna just go in there. I'm gonna put in a bunch of laps. I have the confidence and whatnot. and that's my second best track on the service. So I'm gonna try to make sure I can go there and and try to get a repeat win.
But you get to regrouping and to celebrate even more. So congratulations on the win.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Blake Ray, your race winner tonight in the number 51 Rowdy Energy Toyota Supra.
We'll take a moment now and get a chance to catch up with the driver who pushed Malik to that victory, that being the 21 of Alan Bowes, who joins us now. And I said it as soon as the checkered flag waved, Alan, that if not for your push, I didn't think Malik won that race. What did you see on that last lap, and what was the determining factor for you to stay committed to him coming through 3 and 4 as long as you did?
Well, I couldn't do anything else. The car was destroyed after that first wreck. So if I peeked outside of the draft, it was done. So I saw a lot of Malik's bumper. That's I can't believe it. To finish second with 1.5 minutes of damage, that's incredible. But yeah, Malik, I love Malik to death. I'm happy he got the win. I'm happy I was able to push him to the win. A lot of emotions right now. Really still not quite sure what to say after that.
Walk us through what the race was like after you got the damage. Obviously, we saw a couple of really big incidents, and including the one that you picked up damage in. It looked like from there it was just mitigating what you could, and as you mentioned, trying to stay in the draft to just give yourself a chance.
Yeah, that was the big thing after I got the damage, was really just shaking it down, seeing how it felt, if it would even keep up. But the draft in these cars is pretty strong, so keeping up wasn't much of a problem. It was just being the leader of a line that was a bit of a problem. But yeah, there was a couple incidents where Seth the Merchant got pretty loose up front, and a lot of people checked up. But I knew who was behind the wheel. Seth is an absolute wheelman, so I checked up, but not quite as much as everybody else, because I mean, racing with Seth for years, I know that he could save something that's completely gone, and I had no concern whatsoever that car is not going to stay straight.
How big for you in what's only a 6-race series this year, so even down one from what it was a year ago, how big is a runner-up finish and getting out of here with positive points, knowing that after 5 more races, the top half of this grid moves on?
It's huge. Coming into Daytona, I'm sure a lot of people expected this to be a drop, myself included. I knew it'd be fast. We usually have speed at restrictor plates, but everybody at the Total Advantage crew, we kind of went into this expecting not to finish well, just that way we didn't get our hopes up. But knowing that I can go through the next 5 races now without really needing to necessarily worry about finishing well, I could finish top 15 and still make it. Definitely takes a lot of the pressure off.
Before we let you go get back to the team, any shout-outs, thank yous, Alan? Who makes it happen for you and the 21 crew?
Yeah, Total Advantage, Landon Huffman, they supported me through Road to Pro, and they're continuing the support through the Pro Series. One Designs hopped on board for Daytona. Not quite sure if that's going to be a permanent deal, but we're going to try to work something out. And Windshield Deep, which is also another addition to the sponsorship for this year. So, things are trending in the upward direction. Houston Hamer continues to provide amazing setups for us that without it, we wouldn't be able to do this. So, all in all, everybody at Total Advantage, all my teammates that were in this race, got to thank them for keeping my spirits up after that wreck, because I was pretty down, but the saying, you might be down, but you're not always out.
Well, we appreciate your time, Alan. Definitely not out. Incredible rally, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a week's time when we get back at it at Auto Club Speedway.
Yep, thanks.
Alan Bowes, tonight's runner-up finisher, and as mentioned, coming up beyond this race, which is now in the rearview mirror at Daytona International Speedway, next Tuesday night, heading to Auto Club Speedway, the 2-mile oval, before we go to a short track, Richmond Raceway on December 1st, Dover International Speedway, the Monster Mile, 1-mile concrete high banks, Charlotte Motor Speedway, the penultimate race, and then wrapping it all up at Homestead Miami Speedway. the Tuesday right before Christmas. So getting everything, a compact 6-race schedule in before the holidays, as we now turn to our booth crew to start wrapping this up, breaking it down. First, I'll go to Blake McCandless. I think we all knew the ending was going to be wild. It was certainly all that and more. 2 or 3 wrecks on the final lap, and Malik Ray still somehow manages to come through and get the job done.
Yeah, and we always say Daytona is where anything can happen, but when you really look at the results, a bunch of wrecks late. Who could have called that? Malik Ray dominating this race from the get-go and finishing up front. We say Daytona is a place where anything can happen. I think a lot of expectations were met tonight. Obviously, a lot of drivers have a lot of work to do and get into, I guess, what a lot of them consider the real part, the real meat and potatoes of this schedule, those 5 tracks that they really have to focus on. And I know a lot of these teams, they have been preparing for that for weeks now. You got to think a lot of these Road to Pro guys, they've had about a month to kind of sit on things and be able to look forward to that schedule and be able to focus on Auto Club, Richmond, Dover, and what have you. So I know a lot of these drivers are very prepared for what's ahead, and a lot of them, it seems as they got to get to work, obviously. But again, just a great job by Malik Ray, Dead Zone, starting up front and kind of finishing there too.
Justin Prince, we thought we were going to see strategy, and for a little while early we did, but it ended up turning into what we expected it to, a typical Daytona race with some crashes late and an all-out sprint to the finish.
Yes, indeed. And in the end as well, teamwork came to play. We've seen the control being held by Total Advantage and Dead Zone up at the front of the field towards the closing stages of this race. I think that was a major key as well for tonight. For these competitors, it's going to be important to try and carry whatever momentum they built up from this race, of course, Jacob, because the key thing is the next few races, it's not just going to be about, okay, what friends are around you. It's going to be about getting that strategy nailed down once more, as well as your setup nailed down. We talked about the schedule, some tough racetracks, already getting messages from several groups who are already starting their focus towards that mark. Some teams already starting off their testing in these past few minutes or so. So in other words, the preparation job is not over. Even with the victory won by Ray tonight, you still have to get the job done for another 5 weeks.
James Pike, we saw 2 distinct sides to this race tonight. We see those who got to the finish, got strong points, put themselves in good position. And we saw those now outside the top 20 in this race who are going to have to dig themselves out of a hole, and that is going to turn the desperation meter up already for those guys who need to rally back just that much more.
You look in the last 10 spots of the running order tonight and look at some of the names that are in there, and there are some heavy hitters that have a lot of work cut out for themselves. Seth DeMerchant, Derek Justice, Brandon Kittel, Steven Wilson, Colin Keister, Alex McCollum, Justin Bolton among the drivers who finished 30th or worse tonight. However, I think the bigger story is the transition in styles of racing and what we're going to see next week at Auto Club Speedway. And I think maybe more of what we're going to see for the rest of the season. I would expect it's going to be a different cast of characters towards the front, and maybe some drivers who don't necessarily love plate racing but have skill, especially at Auto Club, come in and make a splash, make some noise. Nathan Lyon won the California Clash. He should be a factor. Ashton Crowder, we talked about during this broadcast, won the Coke Series race at Auto Club last February, should be in the mix too. And then we'll see just what kind of chops Spencer DeYoung has. We know he can run in just about anything in the sim, and you would think at some point we're going to hear from him. And Garrett Maines too. Garrett Maines has more wins and more titles on a podium broadcast than any other driver in the history of iRacing. So a few more names, a few different names, a rotating cast of characters I think we'll see at the front of the field in Southern California next Tuesday night.
I think it's what makes this series so interesting and so intriguing, the depth of competition, the fact that even though there are some names that haven't been at the top level before, they know their way around this sim, and that is going to make anything possible over the next 5 weeks. We hope you'll join us 1 week from tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, when we return and head to Auto Club Speedway. Of course, we've got more coming on Podium Esports as well, a doubleheader next Monday night tonight. It starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern with the Grid Ultimate Driver Challenge from Eldora Speedway on the dirt. That's followed at 9 p.m. Eastern on Podium 2 by Monday Night Racing presented by Toughco Flooring. The Tough Trucks at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Going to be a whole lot of fun. Looking forward to that before we get back here next Tuesday at Auto Club for the next round of the Pro Series. So right now, for Tyler Hudson and Cisco Scaramouza at iRacing, for Gary Sexton and John Theodore at Podium Esports, for our producer tonight, Ryan Bauer, for Justin Prince down on pit road, for Blake McCandless and James Pike out in the turns, I'm Speed Sports Jacob Seelman. Thank you for watching tonight's opening round of the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series, and we'll see you next Tuesday for round 2 from the virtual Auto Club Speedway. Till we meet again.